David Baddiel, children's author. What's this all about?
Well, I have children. It's the key element of it. And one of the things about having children, one of the things that you do is tell them stories. And obviously you can buy stories, like the Parent Agency, and read them to them. But what I found myself doing a lot as my kids were growing up is making up stories for them.
My mum used to do that. She used to make stories up about fairies, because I loved fairies.
Yeah, I think I've done fairies. I think I've done dinosaurs. I think I've done quite a lot of monkey work. I mean, just basically, I would quite like improvising stories at night for them, and it seemed to make them laugh and, you know, felt more like engaged with them than just reading something out of a book. So I was doing that anyway. And then, about 2 years ago, me and Ezra, my son, who's 9 now, but was 7 then, we went to, there's a Harry Potter thing in Leavesden, like a walkthrough you can go to, where it's filmed. You can go there and see Hogwarts and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
And so we went there, and Ezra was just chatting to me, and he said, Dad, why doesn't Harry run away from the Dursleys, who, as you will probably know, is the horrible family he lives in the Muggle universe?
Yeah.
Why doesn't he run away from them and try and find some better parents? And I said, I don't know, but that's given me an idea. And that gave me the idea of a kid who's bored and unhappy and a bit angry with his parents, who are just, you know, a bit drab and dull in his mind, and who goes into an alternative universe where children run the world and basically you're allowed to pick your own parents. And he tries out lots of different types of parents, rich parents and famous parents and parents who don't have any rules and blah, blah, blah. And so the answer is that both having children and like having a child who could give me an idea is the reason I wrote a kids book. I didn't really stop to think, I haven't written a kids book before. I just thought that's a great idea for a kids book.
It's quite different writing an adult novel to, I should imagine, writing a kids book.
Yeah,
a whole different way of writing.
It is. I tell you, the thing that's really interesting about doing it is that sometimes, even with a kids book, you have to describe something quite complicated, some kind of abstract idea or some kind of description of a landscape that's quite complicated. And it's very challenging and interesting to try and do that in the language of a child. You know, so you're not available, you don't have available all your vocabulary, and it's actually really disciplined and interesting to try and make that work. And also, I try to make it funny. You know, a lot of kids' books can be a bit serious, not always, obviously, but David Williams has really, you know, done brilliantly in reintroducing, I think, funny in a big way to kids' literature. But, you know, some of them can be quite serious and whatever, and this one is hopefully funny all the way through, although quite tear-jerking at the end as well, apparently.
And it's nice to make it entertaining for the parents as well, because they've got to read, you know, once a kid likes a book, they want it read every single night for about 6 months.
Yes, I know.
So
I know. And also, I've done that with movies as well.
Oh, really?
With my kids. Yeah. I've seen Cars. You know that film? I've seen it 50 times, I think. there are bits of Cars that I've noticed. I think no one else has ever noticed. But, yeah, with books as well. But I think the Parent Agency is quite good from that point of view, in that it's got it's got a lot in it about parents. And although it's all seen from a kid's point of view, I think there's lots in it that parents will like as well, I hope.
Okay, well, I want to talk about the Hertford Children's Book Festival in a bit, but just for the grown-ups, when are we going to see you on the road again?
Well, I'm doing a whole series. I did this show, Fame Not the Musical, which is a stand-up set, and I'm doing a bundle of one-off versions of that in the autumn.
Great.
My show, Fame Not the Musical, which is my stand-up show about the silliness of fame, which I started doing last year in Edinburgh, and I sort of do on and off ever since. But I'm also doing completely differently from the children's book. I wrote a film that came out in 2010 called The Infidel, which is about a Muslim who discovers that he was actually adopted and born Jewish, with Omid Jalili in it, and we're doing a musical version of that.
You're doing a musical of The Infidel?
Yes, there's a musical of The Infidel, which opens on Saturday at the Theatre Royal Stratford East.
Wow.
In London, and the music's been written by Aaron Baron Cohen, who is Sacha Baron Cohen's brother.
Amazing.
Who writes all the music of his films, and that's why I've been co-directing that, as well as trying to get this children's book out there, so it's been quite busy.
How have you got the time?
I haven't really, is the truth. I haven't got the time, but, you know, my children themselves obviously are orphans at the moment. No, they're not, they're fine. But the musical's been great, actually. I've really loved doing the musical, because I like a good tune, and Aaron's written lots of brilliant tunes, so that's been a real laugh.
Right, and The Infidel pokes fun at religion.
It does. It doesn't really poke fun. It doesn't poke fun at faith, but it does poke fun. It pokes fun at religious people, really, and particularly the extremes of religious people. So it pokes fun at fundamentalists on both sides of that religious divide, and the main source of comedy, in a way, is just the stereotypes that each religion has of the other, and how those are broken down when one person realizes that he's in the opposing camp or whatever. It's really a musical and a story about people more than it is about God.
Well, as an atheist, you can be completely neutral on the subject.
That's completely right.
You know, there's no way anyone could suggest you're trying to push one particular belief or another.
Well, you know what? I mean, when I watch it now, though, particularly at the end of the musical, there's a point at which they kind of like all the differences are resolved and they all come together, and they part of the singing is about how a true thing, which is that both Muslim, Islam and Judaism actually believe in the same God, the same God, and they kind of sing about it. And I'm watching it as an atheist, and I think, oh my God, I seem to have written Godspell here. It all gets a bit religious, but that's fine, because everything's all kind of happy and nice.
I suppose it's a good job you weren't writing about football, because being a Chelsea fan, I suppose that's probably the closest you've got to a religion, isn't it? It's got the same bizarre nonsense and irrational belief in something greater than us all.
Yeah, I don't worship Jose Mourinho, though.
Okay, that's
not
the
as an
difference.
actual god. But yes, you're right. There is a kind of transcendence, I think, when football is really great. That you go to. But I can find that as well in music and literature. But yeah. Football, I agree with you, it's got a religious element to it.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you something as well, because, I mean, you're a smart guy, double first at Cambridge, all the rest of it. I don't meet dumb atheists. I only meet very, very clever atheists, but I meet lots of dumb religious people. Do you think the two go hand in hand, atheism and intelligence?
Not always. No, not always.
You've met dumb atheists?
What I tell you is interesting from that point of view is that I used to think that people who believe in God were probably not that intellectual, but then I met Frank Skinner and became very close friends with Frank. And Frank, you may or may not know, is a devout Catholic.
Is he really? Okay.
Yeah, no, he's a proper devout Catholic. I mean, interestingly enough, his baby, he's got a baby now, he wouldn't make me the godparent because I'm not Catholic, because I'm an atheist, but my partner, Morwenna, is Catholic, and so she's the godmother.
Right. So it worked out.
But he's incredibly bright. Frank's incredibly bright, incredibly, he's self-educated. He's like really, really reads all the time, and he still believes. And I think that's really interesting, and challenging for us as friends to have that discussion from time to time.
Yeah, I bet.
What made you an atheist? Because your parents, are they both Jewish?
Yeah. My parents are both Jewish. My mum is probably a believer, more or less, and certainly her grandparents, who were refugees from Nazism, they believed, and it's very important to them to believe. My dad probably is the key. My dad was a scientist, and I think that's probably where the atheism comes from, I guess. I went to an Orthodox Jewish primary school as well, so to some extent, I guess it's a reaction to all that. But I should say I like religion. I think religion's great and interesting, and there's lots of magic and poetry and lessons in there for humanity. I just don't believe in its basic premise.
My favourite thing about the Jewish religion is the closeness of Jewish families. And I don't have a Jewish family, but I have a very, very big, close family. And quite often people say, "Are you Jewish?" because we're so close. Do you still have that closeness within your family?
Yes. I mean, my parents were both only children, so we don't have a vast extended family. And actually, actually, just to sort of contradict that, I believe there was some huge rift. I did the first series of Who Do You Think You Are, and found out something which I didn't know, which is that there's a section of my family that is ultra-religious. They're mainly around Newcastle, and they won't speak to our small section of the family because we're not. So, having said that, there's not a closeness there. But within our little family, yes, we're all very close.
Because I find it fascinating that your dad's from Wales,
yeah,
and your mum's from Germany, and how they actually met.
Yes, they met at a Jewish event. My dad's family came over, in the 19th century. So Jews are all here fleeing from some type of persecution. So my mum was a refugee from Nazi Germany. She was brought here as a baby 3 weeks before the Second World War. But my dad's father, I think actually his grandfather, came in the 19th century fleeing from Russian persecution.
Wow.
They were in sort of Latvia. And so my dad was just completely Welsh. He's like second generation Welsh. He's 80 now, but still a bit of a lad. And he used to go to Jewish events, to dances in London. He used to come up from Swansea essentially to try and pick up women. And that's when he met my mum. My mum was, I think she was a dental nurse in London at the time, and he was just trying to find ladies, and he found my mum.
Oh.
Well, that brings us back nicely to the book then, the parent agency where the kids get to choose their parents. Would you have chosen yours?
Well, I'm not going going to say on the radio that I wouldn't have done. No, yeah, I would, because my parents are great. They're very eccentric people, both of them, and very unusual and unique, and I like that very much about them.
Well, a scientist Welshman, I mean, you can't get more eccentric than that. I've got Welsh in my family as well. I know they like to party.
Well, he was a scientist, and then he stopped being a scientist about my age and sold dinky toys for the rest of his life.
Wow.
So, yeah, he's had an interesting career. And my mum is just a big character. Yeah, I probably would, but at the same time, I think one thing in the parent agency, I don't know, but I think it sort of plays out a very basic primal fantasy that perhaps you have as a kid, which is that, you know, there might be other ways of living your life. There's alternative universes. And, you know, I won't deny that there were times when I was young where I thought, oh, my mate Dave, who lives in Wembley, he seems to have much nicer food than I do, and he's got a bigger telly and whatever. And so you sort of like to muse on the idea of what it'd be like to be brought up by them. And that's really what it plays out, is that kind of fantasy of thinking, oh, what would my life be like if I was, you know, somewhere else.
Well, the Parent Agency is out on October the 9th, and we can see you at the Hertford Children's Book Festival.
Yeah, Sunday morning, not too early, thank God. As an atheist, I can say that. It's at 11 a.m. in Hertford Theatre. Brian North, who runs the festival, but is also a brilliant writer in her own right, she's going to be interviewing me. I'll be reading from the book. Kids, obviously, are welcome, and signing afterwards, and then leaving quite sharpish to go and see Chelsea Arsenal.
Okay.
Oh,
okay.
right.
All right. Well, good
Priorities there, David.
David Baddiel, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Pleasure to
Thanks
talk
for your
to you
time.
too.